Hi everyone, good morning and welcome to Nikon India's official YouTube channel. I hope this this quality is far better than yesterday. Okay, just gonna set up my quick feedback. You guys can see my screen properly as well as your chat window will be there as well for now. Just gonna get rid of that and hopefully you can see me there as well. So let's take a very quick feedback from you guys. Can you see my screen properly? Perfect. Now, as you all have noticed yesterday that we did not go through pretty well. Like it was a little bit of the blurry streaming quality, and the whole editing idea was not fun with that because you can't see really what's happening. So today we decided to shift this platform completely. Okay, now since we left out yesterday, and many of you did not get a chance to go through the wedding edit quickly as well. So I'm going to go through that as well. Very quickly, we're going to go through the basic settings, what's happening in the Lightroom, what are the modules are for, and then we're going to jump into the very detailed editing, and then we're going to go to the landscape editing part as well, okay? All right, so that's that. Uh, how are you all doing? Like you can reply me on the chat. I will not be able to reply everybody straight away, but okay, perfect. So yeah, let's start. Um, you don't really need to see my face, so I'm just gonna get rid of the other camera. Care about it. This is the library module. You usually see your Lightroom like this, okay? Uh, Here you will see library, then you have develop, then you have map, book, slideshow, print, and web, okay? Not all of them are quite useful in terms of editing photos, obviously, but if you're making a book or a slideshow, yeah, you can use those options. So we're gonna turn off all of them for now because we're gonna be working on the edits today. This is a Lightroom Classic, Soumya. So if I get a chance to see any comments, I'll try and reply. If I cannot reply straight away, I'll try to reply after the class. Okay. Let me make the screen bigger. So make sure your resolution is a full HD or whatever the highest resolution you can achieve from your device. The bigger the device, you will be able to see it more clearly. Okay. So now in the library module, so library module is basically to manage the photographs. You can select, let's say if you hit P, you can select specific photograph as a flagged. Uh, I think my screen is a little bit cropped. Let me adjust that very quickly. Okay. This is gonna be okay. So I'm gonna try to achieve top and the bottom properly, so you guys can see it. All right, that should be fine, I guess. Okay, jump back to Lightroom. This looks really trippy, I know. Perfect. So let's start with the editing part. Library, you have a management module. You can select by using P key on your keyboard, P for Poland. And if you want to remove that, you can use U key. So the flag will be removed, and with P you will have a flag on the photograph. You can choose stars like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can give a star rating to your photographs. Okay, and press 0 to remove all the ratings, and then you have color codings, which is like 6, which is for red, then 7 is for yellow, 8 is for the green, and 9 is for the blue. Okay, so you have color codes, you have star ratings, and then you have flags. All right, so let me remove that flag, let me remove that color. So if you press the same color button again, it will remove it. So here you can select photographs which you want to work with, which you don't want to work with. Now, on the left, you will see these are your folders. So once you import your files, let's say you hit import button, and then you'll see this window. Now this window is quite interesting. On the left, you have your source. So where are you importing your photos from? So if you have your memory card from your camera, you will see your memory card appear here. If you have external drive or a flash drive, it will be appear. So whatever the source is, it will be there. So you can select your source, and then in the center part, it will show you what photographs you want to work with. That's my wife. She's gonna be around. She brought me nice coffee. So in the center, you will see all the photographs. Let me just show you an example straight away. Go to the pictures, say 2019, and yeah, so you have all the photographs on the center. So your source on the left, the photographs which are there from the source, and what you want to do and where you're going to put it in, which is going to be on the right side. So your source, what photographs do you want to copy it, move it, or add it, and then where you're going to put it. You can rename them, you can build different preview sizes, you can add your own metadata, you can have keywords, and your destination. Okay, now I'm not working on this photograph, so I'm not gonna actually import these photographs, but all you have to do is just make sure your photographs are check marked like this, and just hit import. Okay, we can go heavily in depth with this module on the right side. There are a bunch of things we can do, but we're not gonna put some time onto it because we want to try and keep this session more productive. All right, so let's cancel this out. Now on the right side is a quick edit. Now quick develop, my bad. So quick develop is when you want to apply the same settings on all the photos at once. Okay, so if you want to make your photographs black and white straight away, all of them, you can just go to the treatment, select, first of all, obviously select the photographs you want to work with, and then go to the treatment and select black and white, and straight away all your photographs are black and white. Now let's say you want to auto tune all of them, like you want to auto adjust all the photographs straight away. So you just hit auto, and as you can see, it is adjusting all of my photograph. Now you think, okay, auto has not done a great job and my exposure is pretty low, so you can just hit 5 points of exposure straight away. Sorry, 2 stops or 1 stop. Okay, so that's the increment level. Or if it's too overexposed, you can just hit once for the exposure on the reduction part. Similarly, you can do with the contrast, highlights, white shadows, and blacks, as well as clarity and vibrance. Vibrance is not, it is grayed out because it's black and white, so you don't have any vibrance over here. All right, let me reset all of them. Okay, so just in case if you have any specific edits applied to the photograph when you import, you can remove it by reset all. Okay, you can apply a similar white balance to all of them. So let's say this is sort of tungsten, so I'm just gonna hit tungsten on all of them, and then I can fine tune them. So tungsten, and then I'm just gonna give some, that's too much exposure. Okay, that's better. So yeah, this is for the mass editing. So in library, you can do certain adjustment which can be applied to all of them. Okay, let me reset again. Perfect. And then if you want to add keywords later on after the import, you can apply the keywords for the specific photo. Now, if you have lots of photograph and multiple cameras, over here you have text. So if you want to find any specific photograph with the text, you can just apply text here, and it will search for you. Attributes are the one we just saw earlier. You have flags, you have this guy. So that means if you want to separate out the photographs you have edited earlier, you just press this and it will show you, and if you press this it will show you the unedited. These are the star ratings. So ratings greater than this, and then we have the color codes. Okay, then we have metadata. So this is interesting. So this is where you can actually select the camera. Since I have only selected flag entries to be viewed, let me go back from attribute, and there we go. So if I go back to metadata, it will show me that is shot on Z7, and there are two lenses I've been shot with. That's a 35mm 1.4 and 105 1.4. So I can separate out the photographs with the focal length I want. So if you're shooting weddings with multiple cameras and multiple lenses, so you can, okay, if you want all your tele lenses to be separated out, all your wide shots to be separated out, you can just do it straight away from here. So if I want all my tele photographs, I just go 105, and I can apply a specific look to it if I want. Let's say if I want all my 105 lenses, all the telephotos to be, let's say black and white. So I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to go black and white here. And let's say if I want all my 35 to look heavy contrasty in color. So, oops. My audio is supposed to be good. You guys can hear me properly? All my photographs from wide angle lens to be exposed properly, and increase the contrast. And let's say I want to crop all of them in square. There we go. So now if I go back, and close the metadata, sorry. So now I have a good mixed bag of all the tele photos on black and white, and all my wide angle are square cropped and a high contrast. Okay, so these are, I mean, if you're a wedding photographer or if you're working on a lot of images, this is gonna be super helpful. It's a very efficient way to apply a bulk presets or bulk adjustments to all the photos. All right, now let's reset all of them. Okay, now we are back to the original, and then you have none. So so these guys are very powerful in sorting, and after sort you want to apply specific presets. If you want to compare, if you want full view, you can select here, And then if you want comparison view, you can have this X and Y. Okay. So I can select specific. So if I want number 6 and if I want 11, let's say this guy. Okay, so 7 and 3 are compared now. And you can obviously swap them as per your requirement. All right. So these are like very light overview of library. Okay, we're gonna jump to the editing part now. Now, let me make sure there are no edits applied to this photograph. Now that's a one of the fantastic groom and bride I shot earlier, and they're walking out of the uh, church on the aisle, and usually you have a good lit situation where they usually stand and the whole ceremony is going on. But when they are walking out, generally scenario, you will have no light on them, and there is a huge backlit situation happening. Okay, so this is the scenario you might face a lot. uh, Shivam, I will give you the preset experience very soon. I have to have a watch somewhere. Just give me a second, guys. I know it is weird to work from home, and because you don't have things in a place that you usually have at your office or at your workplace. So I'm just still gathering things here and there. Okay. Any of you guys like experience working from home is quite weird, like and it is comfortable obviously, but you don't have your powerful tools and everything to work with. All right, so we're gonna go through the preset eventually. Let's say it is like what 11:17 right now. So yeah, we're gonna jump to the preset part. Let's say in 5 or 10 minutes. Perfect. Without wasting any time, let's start talking about local adjustments first, because I think we already went through the basic earlier yesterday. I know it was not so much clear, but you know what? Let me go through it quickly instead of jumping directly to the local adjustments. So first we have your white balance. You have control over yellow and blue and magenta and green. So from the color wheel, if you don't have red and cyan here, okay? So if you want to add red, you just increase temperature and increase tint and you have your red. And if you decrease temperature and decrease your tint, you have your cyan. So let's get back this to the normal part. Now, if I want to have a very precise white balance, the technical thing is I have to have 18% gray, right? The speaker has to have the speaker of white balance has to be applied to the 18% gray. But obviously, if you're shooting a wedding, you don't have a time to put a gray card next to the bride and groom all the time, right? That would be very stupid. So what I'll look for is something white or close to gray in each photograph, especially if the bride or your subject are wearing that specific color. That would be perfect. So here our groom is wearing white, a very nice white shirt, so I'm just gonna click on that. Now as you can see, it is quite cold, but it's gonna give me a perfect tint and everything, so I'm just gonna fine tune that a little bit. And then next we have exposure, so I'm just gonna increase exposure and see the potential of the file. Okay, so what is the potential of the file? So as I increase the exposure, I want to see if my shadow details are pretty good, and if I decrease the exposure, I want to make sure my highlight details are pretty good. Okay, so these areas are highlights. As you can see, they're pretty bright after reducing exposure. And if I increase on the right and the left, these are pretty dark areas. So if I increase exposure, you will see those dark areas get brightened, and the quality looks pretty good. That's the beauty of these new cameras, that they have fantastic latitude to work with, or dynamic range, whatever you say. So now I'll get down and reduce highlights and increase shadows. So for many of you, it looks like, okay, he's making an HDR. Well, in a way, yes, but this is gonna help me to view the photograph very flattened way. I can map my game plan with the edit here. So uh, in the center, I have bright and groom, and then these are nice leading lines happening, and I have to be careful with the highlights in the back. So next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna crush some of the blacks. So it's gonna give me some definition in the photo. Okay, next thing, I'm not gonna touch textures clarity in DHS for now because let's face it, it's not gonna work well for the portraits. Okay, this photograph is I have left it out on the Adobe color, which is providing maximum gamut of the color and dynamic range as well. You can always go and choose if you like something else. Let's say if you really like artsy stuff, you can just go directly here and you can choose something. But I like to do it absolutely manually, so I'm just gonna go and you can always choose your camera matching as well. But we're gonna stay to Adobe color for now, the default one. Okay, now I'm just gonna crush my blacks here. And then I'm gonna lift slightly. See what's happening? Just by little bit of curve, I have nice contrast happening straight away. Look at the histogram on the top. It is changing completely. Like you just click and boom, it's a whole different photo. Now we're gonna leave our curve right here. If you don't know what is curve, let me flatten it. Come on, flatten. Yeah, there you go. 1, 2, 3. So with the curves, you can adjust your blacks. Okay. You can adjust your shadows. Oops, sorry. We can adjust our midtones. We can adjust our highlights. And then we have adjustment with the whites. Okay. So this is to understand how the curve works. So all I want with this photo right here, as of right now, I want some more contrast and definition, but I want to crush my blacks a little bit, so it's gonna give me a very smoother look. So I'm gonna reduce my shadows. So as you can see, I have only 1 point. If I reduce my shadows, it's gonna reduce the exposure throughout the curve. As you can see, it dropped below of that dotted line. Okay, so I'm gonna recover this right here. So it is not an S curve like a contrast, but it is like a mild contrast, but more on the we're darkening up our shadows actually. I'm gonna take this very last point here and I'm gonna lift it slightly. Okay, so that's curves. Next is HSL. So HSL is a hue, saturation, and luminance. So make it easier, we're gonna keep luminance first. Luminance is the brightness of the color. Sorry guys, I'm having a coffee as well alongside. So bear with me if I'm taking a break while speaking. So luminance is the brightness of a specific color. So let's say, let me use this picker. If I click here, this little guy here, and wherever I click, let's say I'm gonna click this blue. Click, hold, and move. So you can see the brightness of that blue in the whole photograph changing straight away. So if I reduce it, it changed the blue here, it changed on this fine lady's clothes as well. And on the right, on the slider, you can see it applied 98% of the blue and 12% of the aqua. So it chose the color appropriately from the pixel I selected. And if I increase orange, it's going to increase all the orange, as you can see. Saturation is the intensity of any color. Meaning, let's go back to blue again. If I increase it, as you can see on the back, the intensity of blue heavily increased. Or if I reduce it all the way, the blue is pretty much gone. So what's left now is the little fringe of this purple color. If I want to get rid of that as well, I'll just, remove that. So saturation is the intensity. If I want the skin tone to pop crazily, I'll just increase orange and it'll go nuts. And the hue is the shift of the color. So let's say I don't like the way this orange looks. So I'm gonna shift it towards red. I can shift it towards red. If I want, I can shift it towards green or yellow. So with the hue, you want to be quite careful what you want to do. If I don't like this blue in the back, I can absolutely change it to aqua or magenta. So these are the adjustments supposed to be done very carefully and with proper feedback from your screen. So let me start with this photograph very quickly. Let's start with the hue. What I'll do with this. So you will be seeing all the adjustment I'll make are very, very tiny. And all these adjustments are, I'm constantly taking a feedback from my photograph here. So now we have green. I like my green to look a little bit, more greenish, I would say. If you have shot old school films like Portra or something, or Kodak films especially, they have this kind of green. Then I'm gonna jump to aqua. Let's say aqua, not too much. Blue. Purple, we don't have too much purple and magenta happening here, so I'm not gonna touch that part. For the hue, obviously saturation, I'll reduce it because just in case if there are there somewhere, I'll get rid of it because I don't like it with the portraits. Now, since you guys are home, I would be really interested in knowing like what are the things you have learned so far when it comes to post production or editing, or is there anything you want me to teach you after, let's say, this session or something you guys are more interested in. Let me be very quick so we can have more photographs taken care of today. So as you can see, I'm reducing all the saturation quite heavily. About here, yeah. And the luminance, we're gonna reduce most of the red and yellow area, and we're gonna increase more on the blue side. Not the blue exactly, to be precise, but okay. Now, don't worry, the photo looks ready as of right now. But once we fix the exposure, it's gonna pop. Nice. So you guys been very much occupied with editing as well. I would really happy if you have very, very specific question articulated with you. I'll be more than happy to help you out, but not right now. Obviously, you can write me an email or maybe you can put it on Nikon DM or something like that. Okay, so that was HSL. Now, split tone. Split tone is very simple. You can add specific color to the highlights, and you can add specific color to the shadows. Not too much fun to use. And I personally, I'm not a big fan of split toning when it comes to wedding or portraits. In landscapes, yes, I might use it. Sharpening, you already guys have some idea. Noise reduction. Unfortunately, we don't have too much because it takes hours and hours to explain each one of individual sliders in detail. Then you have lens correction. The only thing I'll check here is the um chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration is when specific wavelength color is not focusing on your sensor properly. If they're going off, you will see a color fringe of magenta, green, or any blue or any color like that. So it will remove that. If you click this and it's still not going to remove it, then you can go further and manually do it from here. You can add some vignette, like really cool looking vignette here. You can also do vignette in the effect panel, but we're gonna look at that later. So the transform. Now, just in case, this is the photograph which is shot with 105 lens. So my lines are gonna be pretty straight, but just in case if they're not, I'm just gonna click constraint crop, and I'm gonna adjust my verticals. And horizontals as well if I need to. So as you can see, as I'm correcting the horizontal, now this line is straight compared to earlier. Okay, so transform, you can play a lot. You can have your guides applied to it. So that's a whole architecture photography thing. In the effects, you can apply vignetting. This is a post crop vignette. So if you have cropping done already, then this vignetting might not work. So then you have to use your effect panel. And grain we're gonna work later on. Let's jump to the calibration part. Now, in contrast, calibration is also a control of color, but it is entangled with all three primary channels. You have red, green, and blue working all together. What do I mean by that? If I apply any changes to any primary color, it will apply to all the other colors. So, okay, so you have this green right here. If I change hue of red, it will change the hue for the green as well. Okay. If I do green saturation, it will saturate red as well. Look this area right here. Okay. So you want to be very careful with the calibration. And calibration, if you don't know, basically it's your data comes from your camera in zeros and ones. It's digital data, right? So you have a data packet. That data packet reads as any F file, CR2 files, or CR3, or ARW for Sony. So each individual manufacturers, they have their own packaging for the raw file. Now those zeros and one has to be interpreted into the visual form. So when it is being converted into the visual form, it will have certain instructions, like let's say 0110 is a blue, this particular shade of blue, let's say this particular shade of blue. So with the calibration, we can have a global adjustment which will tell, okay, no, that 0110 we are shifting to aqua now. So because that has changed, the whole equation of the other zeros and ones or other data packets has been changed as well. So you will see that change happen dramatically. So this is where, if you be very careful with the adjustment of the calibration, you will have some fascinating results. And obviously you can change some shadow tint here as well. So let's start with the red hue and saturation. So I'm gonna be going white positive here. And I'm gonna reduce some saturation. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Okay. And then I'm gonna work on the green. So let's say 30 maybe, 40, 45 maybe. Okay. And I'm gonna reduce the saturation again. Let's give that nice teal tint. So this way you have that famous orange and teal feel to it. Like it's very subtle. You don't see it apparently because you want to make the photograph look good. You're not selling presets, obviously. That's too much a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we have done here this so far. Now just gonna make sure that my basic adjustment has to be changed a little bit. I'm gonna reduce some whites so I can have more definitions and details right here. And I'm gonna increase black quite a lot because this blacks I'll be adjusting from here. See now straight away how photograph came to life. And the final thing is your white balance. All right, so this is where we started and this is what we have. Now all these adjustments were done without any local adjustment. So what do I mean by local adjustment? We have brush. So we can brush everywhere we want. Let's say we want to make our groom look a little bit better, nice definitions on his suit and faces are bright as well. So you have a really good control here. Now, guys, I have to tell you, it's not a secret actually, but it's something you should know that if you like to brush a lot, I highly recommend you get a pointing device like a Wacom or something, some kind of tablet. So you have very superior control over what you're doing. Okay, so we have brush and all these adjustments you see on the right are applied wherever I have a brush. So if I want to see what's happening, I'm just going to press O. So it's going to show me the overlay. So all this red area you see, that's where I have applied my brush. So just in case if I forgot to apply anywhere, I can just go ahead and fix that right now. I don't want his hands. All right, that's it. That looks good. And I'm gonna press O again, so it's gonna remove the overlay. So I'm gonna turn it off and on, and you can see. Okay, so quite a difference, right? Now I'm gonna increase this exposure of the brush even a little bit more. So let's say we went to 1.6 and I'm gonna hit minus key on my keyboard. Sorry, yeah. So I'm gonna reduce my exposure and I can increase it. So now you have a good ability to see. You can adjust your separation of your subject from the background straight away. Okay, that's still a little bit heavy. Cool. Next, the local adjustment we have is the radial filter. So let me go ahead and just make it 0. Okay, so radial is first thing I want you guys to do is go down, increase your feather all the way 100 and make this invert turn on. Okay, now you can have your adjustment right here, and as you can see, now if you know how to use your radial filter, you will be very, very powerful when it comes to editing with Lightroom. Yes, Mr. Bose, I do have my own presets, but I'm not selling it so far. But the edit I'm doing, the one I did right now, that's one of my presets. So you can go ahead and copy that. So I'm just gonna adjust my exposure. And now with this radial filter, as you can see, my subject has been popped out nicely compared to everywhere else. But the problem is, if I increase exposure in the whole area, my background is super bright now. So how do I control it? There are two ways I can do it. I can have this brush inside the radial filter, and then now you can see that's a plus, right? So if you hold Option or Alt key, then you will see a minus. Minus is where you can actually remove it. If you don't know what you're doing, just press O again. Now you can see I'm removing that specific areas. I don't want this to be bright as well. I don't want this to be too much bright as well. Okay, there we go. And then last thing we have is the gradient filter, which is a straight one. So instead of radial, which is obviously round or oval, this is more of a straight. So as you can see, let me press O again so I can get rid of the overlay, and then you can have all the adjustment you want. So let's say for some reason it is too much yellow, you can just reduce that temperature. I can apply the same thing here as well, and instead I can reduce. So if I want even more concentration on my subject, I can reduce exposure, I can reduce saturation. I'm gonna do the same thing here as well. Reduce exposure a little bit and saturation. Okay, that's a little bit heavy. Okay. So there we go. So before and after. If you press Y, you can compare it straight away. Okay, let's jump to. You guys want to go to the. Let's do a very quick edit, portrait edit, because I want to show skin retouching and how do you do. So how do you work with the very solid colors. So I have pulled out this session we have done back in December on a completely white backdrop. So let's say where we can do, okay. So first thing first, I'm gonna crop it. This is one of the really professional and talented model I usually shoot and practice session with, Juhi. So thanks a lot, Juhi. You've been great. So remember that thing we did yesterday? We made a preset. So let me show you how to make a preset very quickly. So go back to the photograph we just edited. Okay, go back to the develop module. All I'm gonna do is, sorry, click this plus button on the preset, create preset. Okay, and I'm gonna go to the test and test 2. So far we have done a treatment which is black or white. White balance we're not gonna touch. Exposure we're not gonna touch. Texture clarity dehaze we didn't do anything. Split toning we didn't do anything. Graduate filter, radial filter, they are absolutely different photos by photo. Noise reduction we didn't apply anything because high ISO quality are pretty awesome Nikons. Lens correction, just chromatic aberration as I said earlier. No transformation is not needed because this is a preset. So transformation is different photo to photo. And then I'm just going to add some grain and calibration and the processing version. So I'm going to create test 2. Go back to the session we were going through. I'm going to hit my filter. This is the photo we just cropped, and develop. And in the test session we have test 2. Okay, now you must be thinking, okay, we applied a preset, it looks pretty dready, right? No, don't worry about it, because it is not exposed well. So just as you increase exposure, you will see a photograph come to life straight away. Okay, now what are we gonna do? We're gonna work on a skin. Like she has pretty good skin already, so we're just gonna work on some basic things. Let me fix my white balance. So this guy right here, this is the spot removal. What it does, let me make this panel smaller so we can. Okay, so this is 100% zoom. If you want, you can always go 200%. Oops. Now, the idea with spot removal is you apply it and it will take a reference data from some other place, which can be replace the texture. So make sure you're in a heal, not clone area, okay? We want to do healing. Cloning is exactly copying the other part from the reference. We are just copying the texture. So I'm gonna apply some here. Remove all these blemishes. Okay, so I'm taking a reference which has very close looking texture. You don't want to go all the way somewhere else and apply that, because it's gonna look really weird. If I go to this jacket, the jacket texture will be copied to the skin, which you don't want, obviously. So just be careful. Okay, and spot doesn't mean just spot. You can just literally brush it according to the shape you need. And the beauty of this spot removal is you can go smaller, you can zoom in even more and go smaller size. So you know the skin will become the skin will remain more human than plastic doll. So, and whenever you do skin retouching, make sure you know don't over edit. So whenever you think you have done so far it's pretty good, dial back 20%. Doesn't matter what. Okay, because since you've been looking at the screen constantly, your eyes are pretty much numb, so you tend to over edit all the time. And if it's feasible for you, you can always take a 15-minute break, sorry, 5-minute break and walk out. Okay, we're gonna fix very tiny things. So these are the basic things we have done so far. Just spot removal, nothing more. Next thing, usually you want to go to the Photoshop and do the frequency separation and all the other tricks. But let's say you're editing in bulk and you're not going to work too much. You don't have much time to work with. So all you can do is take a radial filter. Remember that local adjustment we did earlier? Take a radial filter. Let's say keep your exposure, let's say 0.5, and reduce your texture by 50 and just apply it. And look at the magic happening. Okay, your exposure level has to be adjusted according to what part of the skin you're working on. So let's turn it off and on. Similarly, I'm gonna do here as well and here as well. You can always rotate your radial filter. So that's the best part. Like, okay, you don't have to go to Photoshop. You don't have to do anything crazy here. But she already looks amazing, and now you have more flattened skin. That's it before and after. Now I'm gonna brighten up her eyes a little bit as well. So I'm gonna use my brush, and I'm gonna go all the way 400%. Now, whenever work with the eyes, just be extremely careful. Don't go overboard. It looks creepy. So just light brush, very light. If I go O, you can see how much I have brushed so far. Make sure you're not brushing in any specularities. So let's say your studio light or any reflective materials which has been reflected in her eyes. You don't want to do that. All right. Next thing, I'm gonna press O again. I'm gonna increase it slowly. And as you can see, I can always work a little bit here. And I'm gonna hold Alt again, so it's a minus now. I'm gonna make a really small, and I'm gonna remove wherever it's been spread. Oops. Okay, nothing more than this. You don't want to go anything more than this. Now, many times you will have a little bloodshot eyes as well. I mean, here Juhi's eyes are pretty okay. Not a problem, but we can always fix it. So go back to, let's say, 0.5 and reduce the saturation. And there we go. Always remember that 20% rule. Okay, so whatever you think you're doing perfectly fine, reduce by 20%. Okay, now we're gonna work with the dodging and burning. That's too much zoom. Okay, let's take a brush again. So dodging is brightening up, and burning is darkening it. Okay, so we're gonna increase the brightness, let's say by 0.5. And first I'm gonna fix the areas. What do I mean by fix the areas? So wherever I see a very specific dark patch, I'm just gonna fix it like this, a very light brush. And then I'm gonna go back and hit new again and increase this intensity. And I'm gonna brush it this way. Okay, I'm gonna take a new brush. I'm gonna reduce my exposure. Now we're gonna go for the burn. Now remember, you can do all these things in Photoshop as well, but it is just too much work to go from here to Photoshop and do that whole thing and then come back with a TIFF file. Here we can work on our NEF file, which is way more flexible. So we're gonna darken very specific areas. We're gonna go back to 400%. Okay. Now again, remember guys, this is just a basic edit. And small thing makes a huge difference. And then I'm gonna go back to 1 to 1. Gonna hit new brush. The reason I'm constantly selecting new brushes is because then I have a very specific control to each one of the brush I have selected. All right, so that's before and that's after. Let's see what did our brush made the difference. So I'm gonna turn off and on the brush. This is off and that's on. Now you can always do dodging in different areas of the photo, not only face. I'm gonna increase it by a stop and I'm gonna work on her hair because she has a very nice flow going on here. So I'm gonna emphasize that. And I'm gonna reduce my zoom level to 50%. Now look, understand the flow of the photo. Her legs are nicely going in a flow. Her hands are in certain direction. So I'm gonna emphasize each one of these things. Okay. And a little bit more brush on the hair. Just don't brush too much on the hair because that's gonna make her hair look a little bit gray. Okay, cool. So we're gonna check the difference we made with brush. We simply dodged and burned. Okay. There we go. So I took a picker and I chose my perfectly white backdrop. If I'm not comfortable, I can always go down here and reduce my blue saturation quite a lot. Now, if I keep it 0, you can see the skin is gonna go really, really yellow. So I'm gonna reduce it to, let's say, 50. And I'm gonna increase my whites here because not necessarily all the presets works all the time on each and every single photographs. Amar, that's a we are doing local adjustments using brush. All right, so we're gonna do before and after again. So that was before, and that's after. I find her skin to be a little bit orangish, so I'm gonna work on that. Let's make it more realistic. Okay, there we go. So that was a quick session for the skin retouch and basic dodging burn in portraits. Okay, hopefully it was helpful for you guys. Let's say, okay, I'm gonna give you a little cheat code which we're gonna work in the next one as well. So we're gonna copy this. Okay, if I want to apply the same settings which we did here to a different photo right here, how are we gonna do it? So I'm gonna select this photo. I'm gonna hold my command button or control button, and I'm gonna select the other photo, hit sync. Now you can select all the things you want to sync from the first photo to the second one. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and check all, and then I'm gonna remove all the local adjustments because that's what we don't want because each photograph is different. Okay, so the locally what we did with the eyes and eyebrows and the skin and everything is not gonna apply here. So we're not gonna do lens correction, just chromatic aberration, spot removal. We're not doing crop as well because crop is different, transformation is different. No noise reduction required here. By the way, guys, this photo was shot on Nikon Z6 and a very basic kit lens. because the kit lens itself is pretty awesome. Not exposure. White balance is good because it's the same white backdrop we are using. So, and I'm gonna hit sync, and because we did not sync exposure, there you go. So you can have everything applied to the next photo, and then you can work on how do you want your photos to look like. You can work on contrast, you can work on shadow details, and you can always reduce your saturation using the blue calibration. Okay, so this is how you copy one setting to the other one. Now we're going to copy the same setting from 4 to number 10. I hit sync. Okay, and we're going to sync the exposure as well. Why not? There we go. So everything is applied here now. Just gonna crop like this. Okay. So now, let's say if I want to select her red dress. So now this is the fun part, okay? Pay attention. I'm going to go all the way out. Okay, zoom out all the way. So 1/8 of the screen. Then I'm gonna go to brush, increase my brush size, effectively huge. I'm gonna go down here, increase my flow all the way. I'm gonna decrease my feather. Sorry. And I'm gonna engage this auto mask. Okay. Now, what this auto mask will do, it will select the specific pixels I clicked. It's gonna select all those other similar pixels in the file, similar color pixels. So let's just hit her dress. If I keep my overlay on, you know what, that's a red is a bad idea. Let's go to the blue. That's a better option. Okay, so if I go ahead and click here, as you can see, it has selected her whole dress. So there are no if I press O, it will take away the overlay, but as you can see, it is sorry, that's, let me hit fit. Yeah, so it has selected only her dress. So now I want her to wear a dark blue. I can make it look like that. Since I have selected this, I can reduce that exposure. I can have very specific color applied to the dress. Make it more on the magenta. Okay, I can add the color I want actually. Okay, so just in case if you're curious, like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? There you go. This is your auto mask selection cheat code. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of it. Okay, now we're gonna jump directly to the landscape editing part. So let me change my catalog. Hope you guys are enjoying. It has been an hour already, so quite a long session, I understand, and thank you so much for being patient. Sorry, why did I? Oh, that's a lot of comments. Sorry, if I have not been able to reply to you straight away, but you know, I'll try my best and get back to you. Okay. All right, so landscapes. So we're gonna be applying pretty much same things. Let me reset everything I have already. Go back to library. Gonna select all these photos and I'm gonna go down here and reset them. So if you are in single view, your reset or any adjustment on every single photographs is not going to work. So what you need to do, you have to come to the thumbnail view and then you reset them after selecting all. And then as you can see, it has been applied. Okay. So now, this I forgot. What was that barn? What was that? The barn. Yeah. I forgot what area is this. Oh, Teton. Yes, this is Grand Teton. Yes. Okay, guys, this is Grand Teton. So it's a very famous barn, and right behind that's supposed to be a mountain range. But as always, I was super lucky, and there was clouds and fog and everything you can think of. So we didn't get much view, but it gave me opportunity to have this very different look in the background, like a very different looking structure and everything. And as you can see, there are already some photographers wearing yellow. Don't wear yellow or orange when you're a landscape photographer, okay? You're just gonna mess some other photographers' photographs. So wear very camouflage clothes or something. And they're just like hanging out. They're just messing our shot. Like everybody was like all the way in the back, and these two douchebags were over there, right in the front with their cameras set up. Anyway, not going there. First, we're gonna crop this. So all I was saying is like just be more considerate when it comes to landscape photography, because nature belongs to everybody. So be more considerate. Let others take photographs as well. So first we're gonna crop and adjust it a little bit. Now the scenario here, you have to read the photographs again, for this photograph particularly again. Now compared to a portrait, landscape photographs have to have a quite different mindset. So you need to know beforehand where you're gonna land, how impactful photograph you want to make, how much saturation you want to show. Generally, whenever people think of landscape, they think of saturation and contrast. Well, that's right, but we need to understand, we need to provide some definition to the photographs itself, and not necessarily always high saturation will look good, but we're gonna try. So this is the photo I have already edited earlier. So we're not going to do that. This is not kind of YouTube things to show you, but this is how I actually edit. So just pay attention. If I'm going to hit the radial filter very first and see the potential on our barn, okay, and see how much detail do we have. Of course, make sure your photograph is in focus. It has a nice data collected. So what do I mean by nice data collected? So on the right, on your histogram, so I'm going to reset this photograph completely again, and look at this. It is not touching on the right side, and it's not touching on the left as well. That means I have all the data shot exactly in the range, meaning I don't have any clipping on the black or white. So I have a maximum data I can work here, which is a good sign. So I'm gonna do my crop again. Okay, there we go. So now I'm gonna go and reduce the highlights and increase my shadows. So that's gonna give me the maximum working range. and I'm going to increase my exposure slowly. So I'm going to be constantly changing all these things. Now I'm going to go far out. I'm going to take my brush, keep my brush huge, go down, and going to make sure. So if you're not using this too much, you can always assign it to the brush B, and brush A can be anything you want as per your requirement. Okay, so I'm going to go here and click, and I'm going to click O as well. So now you can see this is nicely selected. My barn is selected precisely. So I'm going to press O again, which will remove the overlay mask, and I'm going to increase my exposure. So as you can see, as I'm increasing my exposure, so the whole area is nicely exposed. Now I don't want my grass to be brightened up. Okay, so I'm gonna reduce my brush size. Come on, come on, come on. There you go. You can use your square brackets to increase or decrease the size of your brush, or you can use your pen and scroll. So now I'm gonna have option selected, which will give me minus, and flow is 0. So I'm gonna reduce my flow a little bit, and no auto mask for the erasing. So okay, that has been done. Next, I'm gonna hit new brush, and I'm gonna be selecting this. So how to increase the size? Go to the 1/8 just to make it easier, and I'm gonna hit the green area. All right, that's too much. It's too much again. Okay. So now this is not working as I expected, so I'm gonna go and use the gradient. So I'm gonna do my gradient. I'm gonna let it reach a little bit towards the vine. I can see my, look at the red thing. My overlay mask will show me, okay, how much I'm applying it. So I'm gonna increase some contrast, reduce some black, reduce some exposure here, add some green, and wait, what? Add more green. Okay, that's too much, obviously. There, to have a proper visual feedback. Now, since I'm selected with the gradient, I'm gonna go inside the gradient and select a brush. So now I can have very much selective area I can work with. So I'm gonna go to brush B, I'm gonna increase some size, I'm gonna increase feather quite a lot here, and reduce my flow to somewhere here, and I'm okay. So I'm not gonna select my mask here for the brush B. So the brush B is, I'm manually brushing specific areas which can match with the initial selection with gradient. Okay, that's too heavy. Okay, so go back here. Let's make it a little bit more subtle. There we go. All right, next part. Now, if we control blues, we can control the sky. So rather than going with the all basic global adjustment, which is gonna go to the brush again. So make sure you see this center dot of the brush. Since my brush is like crazy huge, I can use my center dot and select very specific areas. So I'm gonna select the blue area of the photo. Let me see my overview. Okay, there we go. All right, now if I want even more, I can select again, and that's gonna give me more defined mask. Now I can reduce my exposure. So as you can see, it is being applied to the sky only. There you go. Okay, and I can increase my dehaze. Not too much, just a little, because we're gonna be doing the dehaze and all the other stuff again. So just be very careful here. Now, from the global adjustment, I'm gonna reduce my blacks, increase my vibrance. That's too much. Okay. Some texture and clarity, and dehaze by only 5 points or maybe less. Yeah, somewhere about. I'm not gonna touch tone curve for this one. HSL is we're gonna keep HSL super basic here, so I'm gonna reduce my blue, not more than 25-ish. So increase some saturation here, and I don't know what color is my barn exactly, so I'm gonna take my picker and go over here. So as you can see, if I hover wherever on here, right side of the panel, it will show me what color is that. It's gonna highlight them. So if I go to blue, it's gonna highlight blue. If I go to orange, it's gonna highlight orange. So my barn is orange and blue, orange and blue. So I'm gonna take orange and increase the saturation of it slightly. I'm gonna go to hue and reduce my blue a little bit. And there we go. Details, we already have a nice standard sharpness. I'm not gonna touch more to it. We don't need any noise reduction as well. I'm gonna go directly to the calibration, and I'm gonna increase, instead of reducing, increase the saturation of the blue. I'm gonna shift the palette slightly here. I'm gonna shift the palette slightly on the positive. Now, radial filter again, and I'm gonna select huge radial filter. Don't worry. I'm gonna increase my dehaze. Now look at that. Now I want to make sure that it doesn't go on my barn. So I'm going to take a brush, go down, hold my option key or Alt key, turn on the auto mask, and I'm gonna press O so I can see if I'm doing it correctly. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna press O again. I'm gonna increase some, not really, I'm not gonna increase this. I'm gonna take another radial filter and I'm gonna apply here. Make it smaller. So some brightness and warmth. Okay, and then obviously you can increase some contrast. You know, that has to be up to your according to your taste. So that's your basic landscape edit. Now landscape edit can be changed a lot. Like you don't want to have a preset for the landscape edit. Okay. Now let's jump to black and white. So let's see what do we have for the black and white. And we're gonna do like crazy saturated one as well. If we have time, because the session went on for like 1.5 hours. So very quickly we're gonna select this photo. Now we're gonna check the potential of it. How much latitude do we have? And then I'm gonna simply turn it to black and white from here only. Okay. Next thing I want to do is crop it. So with vertical, I'm not gonna keep the standard original crop. I'm gonna go to 6:7. So that's the size I personally like my photographs to be in vertical. Now, as you can see, there is a huge vignette. So that vignette is because I use so many filters on top of the camera, on the top of the lens. I have a 1090 filter, which is gonna give me about 290 seconds of exposure. Okay, so as you can see, I have shot this on Z7 with 2470 f4 at 64 ISO f14 and 298 seconds. So that whole stack of filter gave me that vignette on the top and bottom, since I was shooting on wide open. So undo that, and I'm gonna remove that black edges using the spot remover. And sometimes it's just not gonna work out, so I'm gonna try cloning. Okay, and I'm gonna change my opacity so that it can match. There we go. Somewhat. Let me fix this even better. Okay. So now go ahead, and first thing we want to do is take our gradient and increase my dehaze, and I'm going to reduce my exposure here, so you can see the drama from the cloud is started happening straight away. Okay, so yeah, that's better. Cool. Next thing I'm going to do, take a brush, how to make it smaller. There is my, I'm going to increase my feather, I'm going to reduce my size, I'm going to reduce my flow. Okay, and I'm going to increase some exposure, let's say 1.5-ish. So I'm going to be brushing on a very specific areas where I think I can have some dimensionality to be separated out. There we go. All right, so next thing we want to do is increase some exposure. Now we have some heavy bright area here as well, so I'm going to make a use of a radial filter, and I'm going to reduce it a tiny bit, and I'm going to add some dehaze as well. All right, then we're going to apply some more dynamic range and reduce black. I'm going to add some texture and quite significant clarity, like let's say 25. and we can do some specific black and white adjustments here. So um, you must be confused, like, okay, how the color has any relevance into black and white. So black and white, as you can see, the world outside is obviously color. So there is we can control that specific wavelength of the color with the slider. So let's say if we want, let me change it to color and you will see. So we have some greens here, we have some red here, and some bluish things here, okay? Go back to black and white. So we can control our green. See? I'm going to keep it quite bright because we want to see some nice texture happening here on the bottom of the mountain. So we're going to keep that. We're going to reduce blue so we can have that cloud drama. Okay, and I'm going to increase some orange so that I can see some texture on this. And then I'm going to add some vignette. Now, as you can see, this reflection is quite bright. So if you want, you can just use your local adjustment and simply control it a little bit. And I'm gonna use this again, make it exposure to 0. I'm gonna increase my contrast here and some clarity. Okay. All right, so that would be for the black and white. Make sure you master your black and white mix pretty good. So always look at the color photograph to make decisions for black and white. Okay. Hopefully this session was useful. Let me do very quick edit on here as well. So I'm gonna add some radial, not exposure. We're just gonna increase shadows. If you have any specific questions, obviously you can write here, or you can write me an email as well, or you can obviously go to my Instagram. Okay, so I'm gonna increase shadows quite a lot here, and then I'm gonna use a gradient, decrease it, add some contrast, and tiny bit of saturation. There we go. And the last thing we want to add is some dehaze. So make sure you're not breaking your files. Now this color doesn't look right, so we're gonna add some temperature to it. And maybe magenta, no. Yeah, there we go, perfect. Okay. There we go. So as before, that's where we started, and that was a quick edit straight away. Okay, so we have edited 3 photos so far. So we're gonna view all 3 of them in a larger screen. So that is the last one we did, super quick edit. Then we have our black and white. Don't worry about that because it is not rendered. See some artifacts here. It is just not loaded so far. So I'm just gonna wait till it, do it. Ah, there we go. It's fixed. Now, very last thing. Um, you see these dots? The spot removal has to be corrected as well. And we're gonna see the first one, first landscape. Our beautiful barn. So you can press F to go to full screen and come back. Now the last thing I'll be showing you is how do you identify your sensor dust? Mirrorless biggest enemy. So you're gonna turn on your spot removal, and if you don't have this toolbar in the bottom, just press T for Texas. So press T and it will show up, and then press visualize spot, and there you go. You can now see those dots quite clearly. So now you can go ahead and take care of them. Okay, so I hope this session was very useful. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned importantly, and we can always go for further, even in-depth session than this with Lightroom and collaboration with other software. Like you can always use Photoshop alongside Lightroom. Okay, guys, remember Lightroom and Photoshop both are very essential softwares. You cannot replace one with the other. Okay, so we can have that another session as well. Um, Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for joining in. And obviously, thanks Nikon for this fantastic initiative, staying home and learn more uh, interesting things, and giving us the opportunity to connect with you guys. Okay, thanks a lot. Stay home and stay safe. Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye bye. End the session straight away.